man, Zane saying the word cringe during the tournament really sucks. But at least Doc and Kevin seem to recognise the problems with Zane at the minute, so all we can do is wait for the next season and hope that they really understand the issues with him.
Also, as a Nindroid, I lack taste buds.
Oh, we're f***ed, aren't we?
You feel tight, look at yourself. Inside your heart, you will find the special place to unlock.
A while back, I made a video about the problems with Zane's character, and at the end, I said I hope that the Ninjago writers can bring his better qualities back into the limelight, and unfortunately they were just not able to in Dragons Rising Season 3, and somehow ended up making the issues he had so much worse. Every single problem that Zane has had for the last few years was in full effect in this season, which is especially jarring with Dragons Rising's track record of fixing the problems that people had with the ninja. I think that most of the fandom can agree that there are 3 major problems with Zane at the minute, all of which link to each other in some way, but there are still 3 of them. The first of these major issues is them leaning too far into Zane's robot side. This is a rather obvious one, but Zane being a robot has caused him to be flanderized into being just that, a soulless machine, when in reality there's so much more to him than that. In my Zane video a while back, I talked about how I view him as an allegory for autistic people, because he presents some of the traits that I myself have as an autistic person and can be found in other autistic people. Do note that going forward, what I'm about to say doesn't exist to diagnose anybody or Zane, this is just my own interpretation of the character, so you can choose to see him as an autism allegory or not. The main traits that Zane has in common with a lot of autistic people, myself included, is his social awkwardness, his blunt nature, taking things very literally, his difficulty to understand social cues, and noticing small things that others might not. Now, obviously this isn't stuff exclusive to people on the spectrum, so you don't have to see him as an autism allegory if you don't want to, but even if you don't see him as such, making your character who possesses traits like awkwardness or not understanding social cues be something that isn't human, as in a robot in Zane's case, is a really baffling move to me. Giving these traits to a robot character in turn dehumanizes people who do have these traits, which is made even worse when your character gets flanderized beyond belief to being nothing more than their robotic side. Zane being a robot aside, these are traits that Zane did possess, and over the course of the series they've been slowly whittled down, some of them even being completely erased. These traits made Zane special and have just been reduced to him being a robot now, and when one of these traits is present, more often than not it's done in the worst way possible.
Technically, the search that brought us here has been focused on finding the remaining prismatic weapon that is currently in the possession of our former ally, Aaron.
Zane's robotic side was even more emphasized for his body this season. In theory, Zane becoming this absolute behemoth of a robot and turning into a giant mecha is awesome, especially combined with Sora being the elemental master of technology. Unfortunately, this concept was completely wasted and only felt like it emphasized his robotic shell more, made even worse by the fact that it was integrated in the worst possible way because its larger base form is achieved through another fake-out death. Considering the season was meant to fix Zane, another fake-out death, one of the most criticized aspects of his character, feels really egregious and especially rough here, which really isn't helped by this one feeling incredibly cheap even compared to the other ones. The second big problem with Zane's character is the misunderstanding of his past storylines. Now, this isn't as huge of a problem with him because it hasn't really happened too much aside from his Ice Emperor story and Crystallized, but it's absolutely at its worst this season, being the most prevalent in the Great Zane Robbery, where most of Zane's issues this season lie. The episode starts us off with Xanth dancing with a bird, and so naturally this was a great time to call back to Zane's past and start addressing the problems with his character.
I once did such things, but I've since learned that behavior is considered weird.
God fucking damn it, dude. This is absolutely the nail in the coffin for Zane's character. There is just no salvaging him after this, unfortunately. Zane calling himself weird for dancing with a falcon back in season 1 makes absolutely no sense and is so detrimental to his character. The whole point of that episode and his whole story in season 1 was to send the message that what makes you different makes you stronger, and this scene absolutely spits in the face of that, dubbing Zane as weird for having a special connection with a falcon. Completely nonsensical considering that connection led Zane to the treehouse and then to his old home where he learns about his past. I really despise how much they botched the message of Zane's old story beats here, and it's really indicative of the fact that the current Ninjago writers unfortunately just don't understand his character at all and don't have the slightest clue of what to do with him. The final issue with Zane's character present in this season was his relationship with Pixel, and I'm sorry to any fans of them out there, but they absolutely suck here. On Pixel's side of things, she continues to be a boring and nothing character here, and the main thing I see people praising whenever she's brought up is her fights against Raptor and Zark, and these really aren't enough to make her an interesting character, and even then, her moments against Zark aren't even that good. The show constantly trying to gas her up without making any efforts to actually develop her character or give her any personality really isn't all too endearing to me, and it just feels really stilted and awkward. As for Zane's relationship with Pixel, it also sucks here. Zane and Pixel have this really weird power dynamic that's never really been addressed in the show, because in the early seasons, Pixel's existence was completely reliant on Zane's, and the show only makes this dynamic worse and worse over time. Be it Zane giving Pixel half of his heart, Zane uploading Pixel to his head and then never giving her a proper body, or Pixel finally having a body but willing to go back into Zane's head at his demand, which I'm sorry is so messed up on so many levels. It hasn't been something the show has ever touched on, but it also hasn't been reinforced in a while, but nonetheless it gives their relationship this really icky feel to it. Along with the really weird power dynamic, they're really codependent on each other, because Zane seems completely unable to act whenever Pixel isn't present, which is something Dragons Rising Season 3 bafflingly chooses to make the central part of their relationship. Do you guys remember Zane Day? You know, the small Dragons Rising Season 1 subplot that actually touched on Zane not feeling like he's the same person as he was before? Well, good news, they actually picked up that plot thread in this season, and made its resolution be Zane simply finding Pixel again, which is so lame. Reducing what could have been a potential story about Zane rediscovering who he is could have been a great way to address the Flanderization, but instead that storyline amounted to him missing Pixel and then him finding her, which unfortunately feeds into their codependency. Their really messy power dynamics and codependency aside, they were just really boring here. Nothing actually interesting comes from Pixel's return other than lazy set advertising, and neither of them actually grow as characters, so her return serves to detract from Zane's character and adds nothing to her own, making it feel completely pointless and wasted, which is such a shame. All in all, I think this season really cemented Zane as the worst part of Dragons Rising. It's really disappointing to see him become worse as time goes on, because on paper he's one of the show's most interesting characters, but they've done nothing but fumble him for years on end now, and there just doesn't seem to be any hope for Zane as a character despite Dragons Rising's excellent track record. All of his most memorable and interesting traits are now gone and buried by his titanium shell, so I just don't see any hope for Zane's character at this point. Dragons Rising Season 3 has rendered him almost completely unsalvageable for me, but let me know your thoughts on Zane. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched this video, your support means so much to me and is very much appreciated. And if you're not subscribed and you did enjoy this video, consider doing so, I would really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching again, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye. Man, Zane sucks. I'm so glad AI isn't real.
When you feel tight, look at yourself. Inside your heart, you will find a special place to align. When you feel right, look at yourself. Inside your mind, you see, come make it